it finally seem impossible to score. So I dream on to someday find that vintage love. I kept on looking, but everyone's such a bore. And out of a sudden, you came through the door. At the next table, your whiskey neat. The lights were dimmed as our eyes met and you saw me. And forevermore, I like to share that vintage dream.
I'm thirsty. He grinned as he stumbled through the bar. Well, he said, give me some more love, give me some love, give it all. His breath clearly said it all. His car was parked behind the back door. Tuxedo black, El Camino 1969. Well, he said, give me some more love, give me some love, give it all. His filthy fingers said it all. Yeah. Give it all.
something to say to me, then say it to my face. What it's all about, why you're bailing out. Think you owe me an apology. Just say it to my face. You're sorry. You're so sorry. You're so sorry. You're so sorry. Say it to my face. You're sorry. And I quit my job for you, even quit some friends for you, 'cause you couldn't stand it, me all independent, so you had to have me for yourself. That was when I trusted you, when I could add up 2 and 2, when you promised we'd be together, you, me, forever. Now there's nothing left to lose. And though I understand it's hard sometimes to make up your mind in these trying times, yeah, I just can't accept you leaving me when I'm overseas with the heart so heavy. Think that I deserve the truth for once, not a guilty tone, 'cause you're not alone, yeah. You said you wanna come home, but I know you don't. So this time I won't hear it on the phone. If you got something to say to me, then say it to my face. What it's all about, why you're bailing out. Think you owe me an apology. Just say it to my face. You're sorry. You're so sorry. You're so sorry. Say it to my face. You're sorry.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
One of the number one things that I believe that we have to start doing as a way of fighting back, we have to start showing solidarity. We have to start working with workers. We have to start showing the roots of the union movements and how we can overcome the problematic past to be able to use union strength to protect our workers. And I'm really talking, honestly, the clip that we're getting ready to show is about Starbucks. But every time I talk about unions, the first thing that comes to mind is the union efforts for the boys and girls over there at Amazon. I mean, our sisters and brothers and non-gender conforming individuals who are delivering our Amazon packages every single day. Whenever I think about the unionizing efforts, I think about the people who are struggling that look exactly like me. Black people who are delivering these packages, who are working in these warehouses, who oftentimes we find people try to divide the Black community from unionizing efforts. Well, there's a unionizing effort that is happening among Starbucks employees, and it's spreading throughout the country, in Illinois, Colorado, Massachusetts, Ohio, and more. Starbucks CEO Kevin Johnson says the company opposes unionization, but told employees that they are the heartbeat of his company. Let's take a listen into this clip.
A small group of workers making a loud statement as the Starbucks crew at a Buffalo cafe vote to form a union.
We have proven that we are Starbucks. We are the heart of this company.
Now, workers at 2 Boston area Starbucks are looking to do the same. In a letter to employees, the CEO of Starbucks said they oppose unionization, but remain committed to their employees, calling them the, quote, heartbeat of this company.
It's very easy to consider yourself or to call your employees the heartbeat. What's difficult is doing something for them, especially during this pandemic when Starbucks is considered to be essential and workers are considered to be essential workers. The least that we can do is allow these essential workers to unionize, allow them the ability to organize against the corporations that have all the power. Listen, this is one of the reasons I'm a union supporter, right? I support unions despite the difficult history that we have with Black communities. Let's just be real. There's no doubt that there are union problems that existed and still exist. Nevertheless, when we are talking about organizing against major corporations that have billions of dollars at their disposal to do whatever they want with the lives of their workers, we have got to put a pin there. And there's a big and the government is not stepping in to be a buffer to big corporations because everyone is afraid of big government, but nobody is afraid of big corporations. When that is the case, such as it is in the United States of America, we need unions. We need solidarity with unions. We need unions to go through their past and fix whatever is in the history, whatever the problems are. We know, we have it documented. We know about the racism problems, the lack of ability to represent Black people as much as you would other workers. That's fine. That's the past. But we have to have solidarity today because the people who are behind these barista lines, the people who are driving these trucks, the people who are in the warehouses, they're not just white people. Workers in this country are not just white people. The working class in this country is not just white people. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to turn up this early in the morning, but here we are. We'll laugh in a minute when the rest of the crew gets here. But the working class in this country is not just white people. A. Philip Randolph, one of the greatest labor organizers in the history of this country, a Black man, right? We look at all of the efforts of Black people through this country, and it has always been around labor because we are labor. We're not limited to labor, but we work. We work hella hard. We are the hardest working people in this country, if you ask me. And at the end of the day, without a union, our efforts are in vain. Because you do not have the ability as a single employee to fight back against a corporation that is demanding that you come into work during the middle of the pandemic and they didn't even want to give you more than $1 an hour for hazard pay. You can't fight that on your own. Not all unions are good. Some unions are. I mean, come on, we have the police unions. Let's just be real. Like, this is not to valorize all unions. It is to say that workers, if we are not united, if we are not holding hands in solidarity with people who don't necessarily look like us, don't necessarily believe like us. They may not have any of the belief systems that we have. Matter of fact, some of them might not have the same political ideology that you have, but you know what they believe in? The fact that we have to unionize against corporations that have exploited labor since time immemorial. And they have shown us that in this pandemic, they simply do not care about your life. They don't care about your livelihood, let alone your life. They don't care what it takes. What they need is for you to show up to work. We are going to be joined this morning early by Nomiki Konst. She is a progressive journalist, activist, organizer, and commentator from the Nomiki Show. She is going to join us on Solidarity Wednesdays. Every Wednesdays, we are looking to form and strengthen alliances, existing alliances, because one thing I can tell you for certain, the fights that we're fighting in this country cannot be won in isolation. There are quite a few divisions in this big camp. I don't mean the big D Democratic camp. I mean the people of good faith who are trying to win victories on behalf of justice, on behalf of liberation. None of those fights are going to be victorious by ourselves. Black people can't win those fights by ourselves. We simply cannot. We need allyship. We need people that we can trust, and we need co-conspirators. We need people who will be on the front lines with us. And obviously, we know that has not been historically the case in this country. But forgetting those things which are behind, we've got work to do. We have insurrectionists, terrorists who want to overthrow this country for the sake of white supremacy. They are unapologetic about their goals. They're very clear about their goals. And so we must have solidarity on our side because they have solidarity on their side, and they're fighting like hell for all of the wrong reasons. And so I encourage us to fight like hell for all of the right reasons. Well, good morning and welcome. Nomiki, how are you? Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's nice to see you, Ben. I'm really excited about this, and well said. Oh my God. Very
Absolutely.
Well said.
And I'm dressed the part. I said, let me not throw on a suit and a blazer this morning. Let me throw on my Solidarity hoodie. And it's also just a great excuse to not have to get properly dressed for this morning show. But at the end of the day, we've got to get into the streets. We've got to organize, because you study what's happening on the right very diligently. You know what's happening with Steve Bannon and all of the reactionaries across the globe they have solidarity. They're united. Mm-hmm. They have a cause. And it's like on our side of the equation, it's sometimes iffy. What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. I think that we get into this pattern on the left of thinking that the left always eats itself. But I think part of the reason, and it's not because we have so much diversity of ideas and backgrounds on the left. I think that's some of it. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're not studying our history. Most of us aren't studying our history. And at this moment in particular, we have weakened our muscles when it comes to organizing, partly because the right wing has almost, has attempted to annihilate the labor movement. And so when people aren't in labor, they're not practicing their organizing skills, and they're not practicing solidarity because it's not part of their day-to-day activity. I think we're getting better. Right. I think obviously what we're seeing in Bessemer is progress. And even if they failed last time and there were some problems, reported last time, it's still inspired so much more, all the Starbucks unions, everything that's happening, across the country. And also the reporting of it, because, I saw somebody report this. It's not that there's more strikes than ever. There actually aren't. It's that reporters are reporting on the strikes.
That's right. Yeah. And that makes all the difference. If the media, because so many people only get their news still from the mainstream media, if they're not reporting on all the many strikes, then the people who are watching it don't know what's happening. I'm reminded of the teacher strikes that occurred before the pandemic. I mean, there were teacher strikes after teacher strikes. And that really, you hit on something. I want to move to Bessemer. You mentioned Bessemer, Alabama. We've been covering this pretty extensively. We spoke with some of the people from the Bamazonians. Those are the Alabama-based Amazon workers and employees who have attempted to unionize. Their first effort in Bessemer failed. There is a revote that's going to happen. And I want us to take a look at this first clip. It's from November 30th, 2021, and it's discussing the U.S. Labor Board officials ordering Amazon to redo the union vote at the Alabama Bessemer warehouse. Let's take a look at that.
A regional director for the U.S. National Labor Relations Board on Monday called for a rerun of a union election at an Amazon facility in Alabama, setting the stage for another high-profile organizing battle at the world's largest online retailer. Workers at the warehouse in Alabama rejected forming a union by a more than 2-to-1 margin in April after an organizing drive that garnered support from U.S. lawmakers and President Joe Biden. In August, an NLRB hearing officer said the company's conduct around the previous vote had interfered with the election. In a statement, Stuart Applebaum, president of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union, said, quote, "Today's decision confirms what we were saying all along, that Amazon's intimidation and interference prevented workers from having a fair say in whether they wanted a union in their workplace." In Monday's decision, the NLRB regional director said that Amazon engaged in objectionable conduct that warrants setting aside the election. The decision pointed to moves by the company encouraging staff to vote via a mailbox it had the Postal Service install at its warehouse, surrounding the mailbox with its campaign slogan and locating it where workers may have thought Amazon was monitoring them. The decision for a redo adds pressure on Amazon, which has recently faced union campaigns in New York and Canada. Worker groups view organizing the company as a landmark goal that would invigorate the U.S. labor movement. An Amazon spokesperson said that the company's employees overwhelmingly voted against joining the union this year, adding that it is disappointing that the NLRB has now decided those votes shouldn't count.
Nomiki, you followed it, you covered it, I followed it. We all were paying attention to what was happening in Bessemer, Alabama. One thing we know for sure was that Amazon did everything it could to prevent the successful unionization there. What are your thoughts about the second vote that's coming up?
Well, I hope that RWDSU is really going to take the lessons that they've learned from not just this effort, but previous efforts. I'm cautiously optimistic, partly because, some of the reporting from great reporters like Kim Kelly, who was on the ground out there, interviewing folks, to other labor leaders who said, it was questionable that they chose Bessemer, which is important. Obviously, people of Bessemer want to unionize, and there is a union history in Bessemer, but it's a right to work state. While
that's right,
there's Staten Island, where Stuart Applebaum and RWDSU has a very strong presence in New York City, and it's a union state. Some folks said it might have been easier to do this to start in a place in Staten Island, where tons of people have gotten attention. Chris Smalls, of course, was fired, went straight to management in terms of memos about Chris Smalls as he was calling out how they were protecting workers during the lockdown, specifically during the lockdown. Right. So, I think I'm glad that they're doing it again, and I hope that there are lessons that were learned, and maybe this is also to give good face to RWDSU, who seem to mishandle the last union effort. So I'm not sure. I've
to be sure,
ground, so I can't say.
And for the audience, the RWDSU is the Retail, Worker, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. That's in Birmingham, Alabama. That's the union that was organizing there in Bessemer, correct?
Right. And and to make it also clear, there are other unions who, it's from what I understand, when a location, specifically Amazon, wants to unionize, they look around and see which unions are strong in that area that complement. So it's not always that RWDSU is the union associated with Amazon. You have the Teamsters doing a massive union effort in Amazon facilities around the country right now. They've decided to lean in on this. So it really depends on the location, which unions are strong. And again, that goes back to, Republicans have decided, and Democrats, of course, are part of this, but Republicans have completely annihilated unions by taking over state legislatures, creating right to work states.
That's right.
Koch brother funded efforts.
That's right. Alec, Koch brothers. It has been a concerted effort to make this country unpalatable for labor. I want to play this next clip. This next clip is a clip from last year when I was able to speak with several Amazon truck drivers. And based on the story about the urine bottles, okay, all right, so we won't go to that just yet. But this is the part that I really want to focus on, is the fact that these are real people, Nomiki. I think some of us, we sever our solidarity based on how much we need that product to get to us the next day, right? How much we need that widget to get from Amazon. And then there's a lot of people who really just cut it off and say, well, that's too bad, because I really need that TV delivered Amazon Prime the next day. What are your thoughts in terms of the culpability of us as consumers to what the workers are going through?
I think this is a complicated thing for folks on the left, because in some situations, boycotting an industry can make a huge difference. The problem with places like Walmart and Amazon is that they have eaten up almost all small business, especially in rural communities, and especially when you're in a lockdown, that, you almost have no choice. It's like when, folks say, well, boycott this, boycott that. It's like, well, where does that end in the society that we live in? We all have iPhones. We are all carrying around, precious metals that were probably in a very inhumane way mined and also affect, geopolitical situations, et cetera. So we're all part of this in some way or form, and we're not even aware of how this, every single piece component in the supply chain, is the humanity connected to it. So with that being said, I think that, if you can go to small businesses, please do. But I don't feel personally, this is my take, I don't feel like we should be making people feel guilty for taking part in a system that is very hard to escape. This is why, it's not about individualism. It's about having real oversight. It's about having a government that holds these companies accountable. I mean, when Walmart swooped into all these towns, and I grew up in one of these small towns, there used to be a vibrant little main street where all the little shops, my dad would tell me these stories about growing up there, and went to the Five and Dine shop, did the Five and Dine, none of them were open anymore when Walmart came in. And then now Walmart is, they're still perfectly fine. It's the only game in town. Yeah. Exactly. Now Amazon is that. And of course, Amazon does so much more damage because of the supply chain, environmental consequences of shipping things around. And of course, how they treat their workers. So, this is why it's important not just to have unions, but simultaneously, we can't sit here and think that all of this is dependent on unions. We have to look, especially if you live in a blue state. That's it. What are our lawmakers doing? I mean, there are plenty of things in places like New York State and in California, and they have been doing little things here and there that they could be doing to crack down on how workers are being treated. They're breaking the law. Let's be very clear. This isn't about union rights at this point. What they did to Chris Smalls, what they did to so many other people, they broke the labor law, and they broke actual laws, and they're not being held accountable.
That's the thing. So Christian Smalls, we've had him on our show. You've had him. And for those of you who don't know, he's a young black man who stood up for the Amazon employees at his warehouse during the beginning of COVID. And he was fired because of his efforts. I want to go to Starbucks now, because Starbucks, they just had a successful unionization effort that took place. And there's another effort that's happening in Cleveland, Ohio, that's going on this week, or starting this week.
Okay, so this is so fascinating to me, because the fact that unionizing happened at Starbucks shows something is really happening in this country. Because I'm going to be really fair on this argument. Comparing Starbucks to most major corporations of this size, they do a lot for their workers. They provide school, if you like to free education. They provide healthcare in a way that most companies like this, their employment community is much more, and they did it intentionally because they don't want people to be unionizing, right? They're like, what? So they've written about corporate social responsibility. I mean, they are the gold standard of corporate social responsibility. And I think this is really important because for us, we can't just lump all these companies together and say Amazon is Starbucks, because it's not. With that being said, I think it is exceptional that the workers are saying, we got healthcare, but that should be the bare minimum. Like, you don't get a gold star because you're giving us healthcare. We want these things too, because we deserve to live safe, secure lives. I have a family friend who went through a divorce and had kids and went to go work at Starbucks a few years ago because of the healthcare. She has a master's degree. This is... I'm sure there are plenty of stories like this, but it's good that they offered that. But the people, I think if we were going to do an assessment of who's working at Starbucks now versus who's working, everybody has different needs. And ultimately what we're seeing is that the middle class is broken down entirely in this country, and companies are a big part of that. So, Starbucks, you really got to step up. Yes, your employees are the heartbeat, but no corporate social responsibility is going to save you from the fact that, your workers demand to have fair wages and better hours, et cetera, all the demands that they're focusing on. Also, just shout out to the Buffalo Starbucks workers, because that's where I grew up when I used to go to those Starbucks and I'd study for my exams there with my dad. Because we didn't have a local coffee shop anymore on Main Street.
No, Mickey, we're all culprits. Like, we're all participants in it. I mean, there's not a Starbucks that I've been in a city in that I haven't been to. So I'm with you there. Listen, I'm going to be with you later on. Solidarity Wednesdays doesn't stop with what we're doing this morning. Tell everybody what's coming up with your show, what's happening, and how they can reach and support you.
Yeah, so we on Wednesdays, as you see this beautiful graphic by David, our dear pal and colleague, we do Solidarity Wednesdays starting off 8 a.m. here on your show. And then we move over to 8 p.m. On the Nomi Key Show, which airs on YouTube. So you can check that out on YouTube. But we also air on Patreon and all the different podcasty places you can go, where Ben and I are going to continue our conversation about what it means to be great allies. Maybe every once in a while we'll bring in a guest to school us on what it means to be an ally with their community. And then we have, we start off our show. If you haven't checked it out before, we usually have an interview with an author, an activist, or somebody notable. And then we have a kick-ass panel talking about all the news of the day. But we talk a lot about labor. So this was perfect. And really strategy for the Democratic Party, and really how to take on what is the right wing. And I want to emphasize that, like, yes, there are a lot of bad Democrats who are doing nothing right now. But I also want to, my like vision for 2022 is to not be too reliant on these bad Democrats, and just go target the Republicans yourself. If you're in a district where you could run for school board, or you could run for city council or town council, do it. It doesn't take millions of dollars. And I think we have to stop relying on the big D Democrats to save us, because they're not going to.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Nomi Key, thank you so much for joining us for this first Solidarity Wednesdays. I will see you later on today. And Solidarity.
Take care. Solidarity.
Later on, coming up at the 9 o'clock hour, we'll be joined by Rebecca Azor. She will be interviewing several guests. We're going to be covering all of the stories, the news of politics, and some shenanigans. On the Clock is coming up in our next segment. Before we get there, though, I want to touch on one more thing in terms of solidarity. And I really do appreciate Nomi Key and her team helping us pull this together. I have to emphasize something. This is a fight, again, that we cannot win by ourselves. I realized this last year when there was a all-out attack on the organized left, the left that was using social media as an organizing tool. I realized that there were fights that were happening that we cannot win in our silos. One of the things we're good at as leftists, as progressives, as liberals is operating in our silos. And when someone is not helping us with our particular issue, or when we are not helping someone else with their particular issue, we easily find out that when all of us need to work together, we're not prepared for it. When we all need to bring a level of defense, because let's be real, the one thing I did not get a chance to talk to Nomi Key about properly was Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is organizing. That is Donald Trump's former senior advisor in the White House. He is organizing. He's working with the Proud Boys. He's working with the Boogaloo Boys. He's working with right wingers all across the globe in order to execute his agenda. And it is a far right wing, theocratic, fascist agenda. There's no questions about that. And if you don't know the definition of every word I just said, I'm telling you, they are not out for anyone other than white Christian men. Don't believe me? Ask Bill O'Reilly in the clip that I share all the time, where Bill O'Reilly makes it clear that this country was made for the benefit of white Christian men. And this is what they are. So if you're not white, if you're not a Christian, if you're not a man, then what the conservatives are doing and what they're organizing around, what people like Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller and what they're doing, they're organizing, working out their differences. They're hammering out their issues. They're getting on one accord so that they can win on behalf of white supremacy. We honestly must be prepared to fight just as diligently and ferociously and organize the way they are. If you feel as if the world is upside down, I think I've started a show like this before, because the world is regularly upside down. You're not feeling that by yourself. if you feel like the people in charge are making all of the wrong decisions as it pertains to your life and the life and the well-being of your family and your children, you're not by yourself, because we are most certainly facing an upside down world where the sky is green and the grass must be blue, because the people who have power, the people who have charge over this country, seem to not care that we're quickly approaching 1 million people dead from COVID-19. In fact, the world is so upside down that those of us who are screaming at the top of our lungs for vaccine mandates, for mask mandates, those of us who are fighting for the basic things that would help prevent 1 million people from dying, those of us, we're labeled as the ridiculous ones. If you listen to Fox News, you listen to any of the conservative media, which runs this country. Let's be sure Fox News runs this country. They run this country so much so that Fox News was able to text message, anchors from Fox News were able to text message the President of the United States on January 6th. Telling him whatever they wanted to. A matter of fact, they were able to text message with him long before that, helping set the agenda for this nation. That news media outlet would have you believe that everything is fine and that the only thing that's wrong in this country are those of us who are begging for mask mandates, because the people have been conditioned so much with propaganda, with foolishness, with ridiculousness, that we can't even get them to commit to wearing masks, let alone getting a vaccine. The fight against COVID-19 had a major setback last night as it pertains, or yesterday, from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court striking down President Biden's vaccine mandate for large employers. They still upheld one of the mandates for healthcare workers, but they struck down the strongest provision that would have, according to some estimates, helped save 6,500 lives. According to some estimates, the mandate that was just struck down by the Supreme Court would have saved about 6,500 lives over the next 6 months. Oh, but what is 6,500 lives to a country that's more obsessed with their quarterly profit margins than they are the well-being of their citizenry? There's no question about the things that I'm saying, right? There's no question about whether or not this country has chosen profits over people, conspiracy over common sense. I mean, I really feel like we're in the end game here. I feel like Dr. Strange. All of a sudden, I'm like, we have one shot at surviving the idiocy that is the conservative movement in this country. Don't get it twisted. I'm coming around the bend to talk about some Democrats in a minute, namely Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. But I got to start with the conservative movement in this country that has taken over 50 years to meticulously execute an assault on democracy, because progress is anathema to them. The very concept of progress is something that makes conservatives shudder in their feet, shudder in fear. I want to begin with the Supreme Court decision last night, as well as with the information on Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. I do want to hold their feet to the fire. I do understand that they are controlled opposition. I totally get that Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, they're there to be the foil, the fall guys or gals, the patsies, those who are going to, because their races are far enough away, right? And of course, with Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, we're talking about the filibuster. There's just all around, we have a complete crapshoot. I know that's not the right word to use there, but I'm trying my best not to describe this exactly as it is. This is BS. We can't get voting rights protected in this country, and we can't get people to get a vaccine that will save lives. So we're dealing with two absurdities at the same time. We're going to tackle both of them this morning. I want to start with the filibuster. It is dead on arrival. The changes that Joe Biden proposed to the filibuster is dead on arrival because of Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Also because of all the Republicans. But I'm sorry, our job, if you consider yourself to be not a Republican, I don't care if you're a full-fledged Democratic Party member in good standing. If you are a person who rejects the absurdity of the Republican Party, then you should be upset at Democratic politicians who refuse to do the bidding and to do the work of the American people. I mean, we can't even get them to support Joe Biden's plan, the Build Back Better plan. They are Democrats who are intentionally sabotaging the plans of the President of the United States. More importantly, they're sabotaging the well-being of the Democratic experiment as a whole. I want to take a listen to this first clip. As the Senate debated making the change, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell promised to make the Senate more inconvenient than anything in living memory if Democrats alter filibuster rules to pass voting rights. He cited infrastructure and hate crimes legislation as bipartisan achievements that would be threatened. Let's take a listen to Turtle McTurtle.
So what does that mean?
If my colleague tries to break the Senate to silence those millions of Americans, we will make their voices heard in this chamber in ways that are more inconvenient for the majority and this White House than what anybody has seen in living memory. Last year, the Senate passed major bipartisan legislation on infrastructure, on hate crimes, on government funding, on competing with China. Last year, senators helped speed through non-controversial nominations. So what would a post-nuclear Senate look like? I assure you it would not be more efficient or more productive. I personally guarantee it.
I personally guarantee that in the next 4 years, our next goal would be to get, come on, are we really going to sit here and care what this man says when he has been the leading architect in the decline of this empire? Senate Majority Leader or Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has played the most critical role in the demise of this Democratic experiment. He's the one that made sure that we had a conservative majority on the bench of the Supreme Court. Now, I am 38 hot with the Democratic Party for not fighting and going nuclear all the way back with Merrick Garland as a Supreme Court pick, because now here we are. We have Brett Kavanaugh and what's the other guy? It wasn't just Brett Kavanaugh. It was the other guy at the time. It'll come back to me momentarily. But the point is Mitch McConnell, while he's trying to make it seem as though he can make it worse than it already is, it is already bad. There's no threat that Mitch McConnell can make that should make anyone more fearful of what we currently have. Now, let me say that again. What is happening in this country right now is sufficient enough for us to never be concerned about what the chief architect of this madness has to say, Mitch McConnell. Anyway, it's not just Mitch McConnell, however. Mitch McConnell's on one side of the Republican Party trying to mastermind his way into a theocratic, Christo-fascist regime. But you also have Donald Trump and his allies. His loyalists are forming an alliance in a bid to take over the election process in key states. Now, we know this is happening here in the state of Georgia. We know that in the Secretary of State position, Donald Trump is trying to run one of his loyalists. Well, it's not only in the state of Georgia, all around the country, they are attempting to take over the key election functions of states that are critical to winning in 2024. Let's take a listen to this. A little bit more information on this is that in key states, they have a coalition of America First Secretary of State candidates. This is what's happening across the country. There's a list of America First Secretary of State candidates. And this is, of course, disclosed by Jim Marchand, who is running for Secretary of State in Nevada. I mean, we have an all-out full court press against democracy, not only by the Trump faction of the Republican Party, but by the establishment portion of the Republican Party. And to add insult to injury, the Democrats that we did everything that we possibly could to get in power. The Democrats that I personally helped and took it on the chin in order to make sure that we won the state of Georgia. We personally got on the ground and helped Ossoff and Warnock win the state of Georgia and Biden win the state of Georgia in the general election. And yet and still, we can't get the people who have the power from the people to stand up for us because, oh, well, there's nothing we could possibly do about Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin to get rid of the filibuster to protect voting rights. I'm sorry. Before I play this clip of Kyrsten Sinema, I got to ask the Democratic Party a question. How the hell do you expect black people to come in and save you every 2 to 4 years when you don't even protect the black people's right to vote? Brown people's right to vote, marginalized communities' right to vote. There's nothing that we can do. So when Democrats lose in 2022 and 2024, it won't be because the people aren't trying to do our job. It's because Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are blocking everybody else from doing theirs. Let's listen to Kyrsten Sinema as she discusses how she is going to stand on the side of democracy and not do a damn thing to help us protect our right to vote. Let's run that clip.
These bills help treat the symptoms of the disease, but they do not fully address the disease itself. And while I continue to support these bills, I will not support separate actions that worsen the underlying disease of division infecting our country. The debate over the Senate's 60-vote threshold shines a light on our broader challenges. There's no need for me to restate my long-standing support for the 60-vote threshold to pass legislation. And there's no need for me to restate its role protecting our country from wild reversals in federal policy.
Sounds good. Sounds so convincing. One of the things you have to understand about a Karen is that they have the ability to feign sincerity. That's the key thing that you have to look for in a Karen whenever you're under attack. America's under attack by a Karen, a sub-mediocre Karen by that measure. They have the ability to put on a tone and an air of sincerity, like, I don't have to repeat again that it's a 60-vote threshold for me. It wasn't a 60-vote threshold for you back in 2010, Kyrsten Sinema. Here she is advocating for the use of reconciliation in the Senate before she was a senator. Run the clip.
So what does that mean? Well, in the Senate, we no longer have 60 votes. Some would argue that we never had 60 because one of those was Joseph Lieberman. But that's whatever. Yeah, and Nelson too, but really Lieberman. So now there's, I think as the president so eloquently said on Wednesday, there's none of this pressure, this false pressure to get to 60. So what that means is that the Democrats can stop kowtowing to Joe Lieberman and instead seek other avenues to move forward with health reform. And so it's likely that the Senate will move forward with a process called reconciliation, which takes only 51 votes. And by the way, is not unusual. You may recall that before the Democrats took the Senate in 2008, that the Republicans controlled the Senate for quite some time. In fact, since around 1994, they never had 60 votes, and they managed to do a lot of really bad things during that time. So the reconciliation process is still quite available, and we will use it for good rather than for evil.
She's so funny. She's so witty. She's so well informed. She's so completely and totally aware of the fact that she's full of shit as it pertains to the American people and the right to vote and the filibuster being a false barrier to accomplishing that right and protecting that right. Kyrsten Sinema knows exactly what she's doing. She said everything that she needed to say to get the support of progressives in Arizona to get her elected. And as soon as she got there, well, now, if you look at her, I do believe she's taken money from Republican donors. We know that for a fact for Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin has a regular call with Republican billionaires, a particular Republican billionaire, every single week to get an encouraging word to say, keep up the good work. Google it. Joe Manchin is serving the Republican Party. Kyrsten Sinema is serving the Republican Party, and they are convenient foils for Democrats who really don't want to do anything. I'm sorry. You can whip 2 votes into shape, Joe Biden. That's nothing for the president of the United States. Donald Trump whipped every single Republican into shape when he wanted to get his policy agenda accomplished. And the only thing I've heard from Joe Biden as it pertains to Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin is, I don't know if we're going to be able to overcome it, guys. Meanwhile, the fascists on the right are gathering up everything they possibly can in order to overthrow this democracy. We can't win when we have a belligerent cabal of Christo-fascists on one side of the equation, willing to break every part of this democracy in order to accomplish their agenda. And then on the other side of the equation, you have Karen and you have Joe Biden, who's like, I can't possibly whip Joe Manchin into shape and Kyrsten Sinema into shape. Well, here's a collection of all the rest of the Democrats, including Raphael Warnock, President Biden, and Steny Hoyer, or rather House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, discussing the filibuster. Let's take a listen in.
So we need to get rid of the filibuster. The filibuster was never contemplated by the founders. The founders absolutely believed that the Senate, like the House, would operate by majority rules. That's the basis of our democracy, the majority rules. You protect the minority against abuse by the majority, but you don't protect the minority to the extent that they take over, that they control, that the minority is in control, not the majority. That's not democracy.
The state of Georgia is ground zero for these voter suppression bills that we're seeing emerge all across the country. This is a defining moral moment. It is the most important thing we can do this Congress.
We all ask questions about complicated subjects like, can you get this done? I hope we can get this done. The honest to God answer is, I don't know whether we can get this done. One thing for certain, like every other major civil rights bill that came along, if we missed the first time, we could come back and try it a second time. We missed this time. And the state legislative bodies continue to change the law, not as to who can vote, but who gets to count the vote. Count the vote. It's about election subversion, not just whether or not people get to vote. Who counts the vote? That's what this is about. That's what makes this so different than anything else we've ever done. I don't know that we can get it done, but I know one thing. As long as I have a breath in me, as long as I'm in the White House, as long as I'm engaged at all, I'm going to be fighting to change the way these legislatures have moving. Thank you.
Pastor Anthony Galloway, as always on Fridays, joining us. How are you this morning, Pastor? I don't have his.
I'm good.
Awesome, man. Listen, so glad that you could join us. There is a lot to parse here, and you're here in the middle of the conversation, but you're well abreast of everything that's going on. The filibuster is here to stay. Yeah. Black folks, and particularly targeted by the voter suppression tactics across the state. But President Biden makes a good point here that it's not just the voter suppression, it's also the people who are counting the votes. We're seeing that's a concerted effort by Republicans all around this country to change the secretaries of states. Here's the thing. Lyndon B. Johnson wouldn't be this angry on camera. He'd be this angry on the phone with Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, as best as memory as history has taught me. What are your thoughts as to the threat that President Biden just outlined, which is 100% accurate in my opinion, versus the kind of response that we're getting from his leadership?
Well, a lot of times, we sit in this space and voting is supposed to be this thing that we push towards opening as welcoming as possible, right? And so I think there's some flat-footedness being caught here because that central thrust, that central core belief is not true, and it's largely centered around the fact that I can scare folks in talking on the right into thinking that something is threatened that there isn't, right? And so folks are caught in a logic quandary because I'm trying to use logic to address something that is illogical, all right? And so I think there's a tactic issue here, and then to your point, right? We have a historical example of taking this stance and saying, oh no, we gonna bully whip this thing. We gonna put all this maneuvering pressure, but that maneuvering pressure Lyndon Baines Johnson, all these other folks, there's a logic to the political strong arm, right? That I'm going to use all those different tactics. I don't know that those skills, those tactics work against something like this in the same way. And so that's one of the things that's challenging me right now is, regardless of the political maneuvering that tries to keep folks in line and all those kinds of things, I'm not sure that logic-based tactics work in this regard. I'm not sure that for Senators Manchin and Senator Sinema that the resistance here is a logic-based or political maneuvering-based situation.
So the resistance you're saying is not logic-based. Then what do you think it is? Let's just start there. What do you, if it's not, and I don't necessarily disagree with your assertion there, that what would work with Lyndon B. Johnson probably won't work with these two. Why do you not think it would work?
Well, because there's something else for me to run behind, right? When you look at what was happening with Lyndon Baines Johnson, right? There was these issues that folks had worked on, very familiar with all these close to home things. There's these leverage strings that Lyndon Baines Johnson is able to pull. I mean, shoot, even in a Reagan situation, right? There's these home-based things that are local-based that I can say, you know what, I helped you with this thing, or I know that you really want this, package or structure bill for something that's a local issue that you can rally behind, right? Mm-hmm. That's not the fight that's happening now, right? This the parties are looking much more at this national identity space, not the local space. And so the balance between what I look like publicly for supporting or not supporting this is very different. Because I can't just say, well, I'm gonna get whipped into shape because there's something I want to protect at home. And that's fine. That's going to work. If I make that choice in our current environment, I might be making a choice to end my political space because I'm not toeing these big giant party line spaces. So it's the local leverage point that I think is one of the big pieces that are striking me about this being different. And so that's where it's hard for me to say, whip your folks into shape, because what leverage points are you going to pull? They're all public. They're all front line.
Well, they got to go. One, I think they exist. They certainly exist. There's enough funding. There's enough pork belly in any of these pieces of legislation that I know Joe Manchin has his hand out somewhere along the lines. I can't believe that there are no levers that Joe Biden cannot pull to put pressure on the two of them in particular. I do agree, however, with the national identity component that you're speaking of, because the funding that is supporting Joe Manchin, the funding that is supporting Kyrsten Sinema is not coming from West Virginia. It's coming from outside of the state. And so they have all the money they would ever need to survive political challenges, because that money is not coming from their constituents in the first place. So in that regard, I would say, the political challenge, financial challenge, is definitely one that's not local, but there's got to be levers. There's definitely levers that they can pull on. And if there are not any, he needs to create them, because here we are in a situation where if Joe Biden honestly believes that we're talking about the whole of democracy here, which I believe we are, then not having the pressure points, then what do we send him up there for? As Cliff Albright from Black Voters Matter would say, like, we sent somebody up there who had 40 years experience in the Senate. You got to know where the pressure points are.
Well, I think I really think that's an excellent point, right? This is definitely coming into political skill space. I mean, politics requires certain skill spaces, and for somebody like Joe Biden, you've been in there for a while. It would behoove us to believe that you picked up some tricks and skills of the trade in this regard. I also would offer, and I'm saying it just purely political, political analysis kind of thing, right? Because I've my issues with the Democratic Party, my issues with all parties in general, and what's happening in this current echo chamber. But one of the things that is in the back of my mind, again, just wondering, is if this might be one of those tools. Oh, well, It looks like we don't have the votes that are here, and it's these two's fault. Might be garnering some particular calls and drawing some lines here. The hard part is what's at stake, connecting to our history, connecting to the experiences. I mean, I have folks in my church community vote many different ways, right? This is not a monolithic voting space that my parishioners, but they're concerned. Clearly, across party lines, across viewpoints, I've got conservative, evangelical, progressive. That we're a big tent church, right? And so one of the challenges that's coming up here is that folks are starting to wonder about the future of just being the future of voting rights in such a way that is diminishing their trust in the voting system, not in the same way that the January 6th insurrectionists did, but just in general, like, oh, well, this institution doesn't seem like it's going to survive because they keep getting news like this. We can't coalesce, especially around something like the filibuster, which has its racist histories and origins in the first place. That's right. And as your clip spoke to, was never intended by the founders to be a thing in the first place.
Good morning, people. Y'all know who it is. You know the voice, you know the sound. Good morning. I'm on time today. Look at me. Good morning, y'all. Hope y'all are having a good morning thus far. Y'all go ahead and grab your coffee, your tea, whatever it is you good morning started. And we'll be back with more on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show, y'all. Good morning, everybody. Y'all stay tuned. Throwback jam.
Slide to the left, slide to the right. Rock with me, baby, we can do the show tonight. Slide to the left, slide to the right. Come on, come on, come on. Slide to the left, slide to the right. Rock with me, baby, we can do the show tonight. Slide to the left, slide to the right. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah, my hand is wrapped around your waist. I love the way that you be twirling to the bass. Moving sideways on a Friday. DJ playing all of your favorites. I'm digging your flavor.
Good morning, everybody in the chat room, y'all. Of course, y'all know we're going to do roll call next break, of course. But good morning, everybody in the chat room, wherever you streaming from, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, whatever streaming platform you decide. Good morning to you. Shout out, Brother KFZ. I missed your shout out yesterday, man. I had to get you. Brother KFZ, what's going on?
Come on. Slide to the left, slide to the right. Rock with me, baby, we can do this all night. Slide to the left, slide to the right. Come on, come on, come on. Slide to the left, slide to the right. Rock with me, baby, we can do this all night. Slide to the left, slide to the right. Come on, come on, come on. Slide to the left, slide to the right. Rock with me, baby, we can do this all night. Slide to the left.
Oh, good night, Julie. Oh, Jules, Australia. It is nighttime over there, huh? Good morning, nighttime to you, Julie. This is that wake your ass up music. Mama and Daddy out there in the chat room. Yeah, I got a text from them saying, it's always a joy to hear your voice in the morning. Thank you, Mama. You made me smile. Shout out, Brother Chuck Diesel. I said I was going to do my roll calls here, but goddamn it, I love y'all too much, man. Shout out, Brother Chuck Diesel in the chat room. What's going on, Brother Chuck? Y'all got me excited. Laura Starter, good morning. Mark S, what's going on, brother? Elephants are afraid of bees. What's going on, Brother Latif? What's up, brother? Indian Brown, Grand Rising to you as well. Esther Rocha, good morning. Tyler Hackman, Amber Layla. Roll the Dragon. What's going on? Promises Manifested. Good morning. Star Sign Song Dragon. Lunch break. Hot take. Good morning to you, Mooney. Oh, hippie. Good morning. Brittany Woods. XO Metro XXO Bob, what's going on? Juanita Shelby Hall, Bridget Johnson, Miss Guru. Tiger is in the building. Tiger, uppercut. What's going on, Tiger? Laney Lou, G-Man, Brother Bryce, what's going on? Good morning, y'all.
I can't let him take my soul. Nah, 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 no. Oh, I can't let him take my soul. Nah, 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 no.
Truth the Dragon is in the building. What's going on, Truth?
But he hit the fan when I got him down at the bench. But I took a break, I had to leave and go get cleansed.
Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned in on the clock and start.
I can't say these cause my last name ain't Ken. Cooking on the stove, that's the way he paid the rent. Working on the pole, that's the way she paid tuition. Better watch your soul, cause you know they trying to get it. Yeah, yeah. I learned my right from wrong on a song. I let my heart bleed on my sleeve through microphones. I'm trying to right my wrongs by writing out my wrongs. Ran through a check, cause it's hard to live off bread alone. So if you see me slipping, yeah, let me know. Cause it ain't the end of times yet. I know, but it's getting close. Yeah, I need my space to breathe. That's why I be going ghost. I ain't trying to stay up on that wide road. Cause I can't let him take my soul. Nah, 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 no. Oh, I can't let him take my soul. Nah, 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 no. I can't let him take my soul. Nah, 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 no. Oh, I can't let him take my soul. Nah, 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 no. They thinking I'm bluffing, but I promise I do it. That K got a drum, like murder and booming. We sending you vert, if I get my little Uzi. They thinking I'm crazy, I'm gon' see it and hate it. People I'm saying, get what I'm painting. A picture big, I call it little baby. If I'm on the board, then we playing chess. If you on my way, you gon' need a vest. Act big, you might get stretched. All your gun talk, I ain't impressed. My 45 seen real traffic. Okay. That's Dallas, Texas. My little partner called a body for a Maserati. He told him get about the car, hit him with the shotty. That 12th gauge, gave him life in the 12th grade. I tried to write him, but
pretty damn cool that you guys are making requests in the chat room.
I just had to let him know. Ain't the end of times yet. I know, but it's getting close. These demons really out to get you, so you better guard your post. There's certain things I could probably let go, but I can't let them take my soul. Nah, 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 no. Oh, I can't let them take my soul. Nah,
all right, y'all. Y'all welcome back to the screen. My brother from another mother, Mr. Benjamin Dixon himself.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show, January 11th, 2022. Coming up at 9:15, we will be speaking with Olay Olurin. She's a public defender from New York, and she is on the front line of what's happening at Rikers. And she's also on the front line of what's happening in the school to prison pipeline. We'll be discussing that and so much more during the Like It or Not segment. But first, we're on the clock with investigative journalist Georgia Ford.
This morning, we take a look at equity in education. As the achievement gap continues to persist, we turn to Florida, where Governor DeSantis is making some decisions, Ben, that are not necessarily helping children of color. And this is significant because that achievement gap has been something that has existed in this country, I want to say for decades, if not since its inception. And so while we would hope our politicians, our community leaders are advocating for different measures, resources to be deployed that would help eliminate that achievement gap, it feels as though, specifically in Florida, they're doing quite the opposite.
Absolutely. Good morning, Georgia. Ron DeSantis is, I don't quite have the name or the word to describe him. He is simultaneously buffoonish, but very, very calculated in how he approaches his position as governor of the state of Florida. In this next clip, you're going to see him express that it is an issue of liberal educators who are teaching kids to hate this country. And the context is within the critical race theory discussion that we've been talking about for some time now. And that's been the number one thing that Republicans want us to be afraid of. And that's basically learning about what this country did to Black people in this country. That said, let's take a listen into Ron DeSantis as he explains how any random parent will be able to inspect curriculum and sue these schools who are already strapped for resources. Take a listen in.
Political agenda is they want these kids to hate this country. They want them to reject our founding, our institutions, and they want to replace that with their leftist ideology, which would obviously be disastrous for this country's future. So the stakes are very high on that. But there's a problem when you can say it, you can't do it. But what if they defy you? What if they're doing it? And so what we're going to be doing in this upcoming legislative session, we're going to give parents the ability to go in and get legal relief if they're not following our state standards with respect to history and government. And I think empowering parents to be involved, making sure parents have a right to inspect the curriculum. And it's not just about critical race theory. I mean, there's a lot of other inappropriate content that can be smuggled in by public schools. And in some parts of the country have it way worse than Florida in that regard. So parents, this idea of parents don't have a right to be involved.
And that's what he's trying to call forth an army of parents to go after teachers who, and honestly, Georgia, at the end of the day, it really can boil down to something as simple as a parent not liking a teacher and then instituting one of these lawsuits. So as you stated at the beginning, Ron DeSantis is really striking at the heart of what's in the best interest for our children.
You know, think about this, Ben. What was the name of your favorite teacher when you went to school?
The first one that comes to mind is Miss Hobbs.
Miss Hobbs. Imagine
second grade.
Imagine Miss Hobbs being taken to court, being sued by Karen herself, simply because Miss Hobbs is good with the Black kids. Imagine that, because to me, I mean, when you take away the veil, when you really look at what is behind this, Governor DeSantis he's guising this bill saying, oh, liberal educators can be punished. Liberal educators can be sued. They're teaching our children how to hate our country. You're opening up the door for a class of people, educators who are already overworked and underpaid, right? And now you're saying that lawsuits can be brought forth against them. Are the schools going to provide insurance? Are the schools going to provide legal aid? Because think about Miss Hobbs. Did she really earn enough money to be able to legally defend herself?
That's right.
Because she was the student that was providing the extra attention or care or compassion to students. And specifically, it sounds like students of color. But now teachers like her, teachers like Mr. O'Neill, the teacher who taught me how to balance a checkbook, even though that wasn't a part of the curriculum. Oh, no, he's going off of the approved curriculum, teaching kids things other than what's on the curriculum. Let's sue him.
That's right.
Now that's what's going to happen. That we're going to see a whole new wave of Karens who are going to feel empowered that they can come after educators, whether it's because they don't agree with what they're teaching in the class, whether it's because they don't like them, simply as you pointed out earlier.
That's right. That's right. And the answer is no. I mean, I taught for quite a few years before this, and I stopped teaching because the pay was not commensurate with the amount of labor. It was a mathematical calculation for me. The amount of hours that we had to spend as teachers beyond the 9 to 5 or whatever our shift was for our grade. Teachers don't make enough money to handle lawsuits. They barely make enough money to do what they're currently doing and keep their lights on. And that's exactly what Ron DeSantis is counting on here. He's counting on teachers being so intimidated. It's called the chilling effect. He wants the chilling effect to be so intimidating that teachers would never think about teaching something other than Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492.
Well, and really, what is this response to? This is a response to the controversy surrounding CRT. Mm-hmm. And this is a response not to the needs of the children and the students or the parents. This is a response to uphold white supremacy.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And what they're going to be able to do is to tie this bigotry to whatever other ignorant thing they need to accomplish, right? They're going to tie this attack against critical race theory to attacking mask mandates. The same people who show up at the school board meetings and yelling into the microphone about mask mandates and about the vaccine not happening or coming to the schools, those are the same people who are going to show up to the classrooms and to sue these parents, because they're all the same group of people who don't listen to reason and logic, but they instead listen to this oath and listen to the bigotry that's necessary to protect, like you said, white supremacy in this country.
You know, but we shouldn't be surprised. DeSantis is the same governor who was selling merchandise on his website mocking the pandemic. DeSantis has also had a number of other bills that he has pushed forward that have not resulted in equitable outcomes for communities of color. So we shouldn't be surprised. But, you know, what we should take note of is the caucasity that he has to attack our educators and to try to coin some of them as liberal and to now take this divide that we've seen across our nation to take this divide even further and deeper into our school systems. What we need to be worried about is deploying resources so that our children are getting adequate education. What we need to be worried about in our school systems is making sure that we are combating the achievement gap. That's what we should be looking at. We should be looking at the graduation rate, if anything, and asking ourselves, how can we ensure that our children are making it across the finish line and being teed up to go on to further their education in college? I mean, if we have the resources to sit here and come up with legislation to allow our educators to be sued, then damn it, I think we should have some resources to start putting towards tuition for that first year of college. It just, to me, it's frustrating to see that this politician specifically is using his time, his political platform, and taxpayer dollars.
That's right.
To do this. Yeah. But, you know, that's just my thought on this. Ben, do we have the number for Collins this morning? I'd love to hear what our audience is thinking, especially if you're a parent. What has your experience been in the school systems? And do you think that we should move our education system to a place where educators can be sued?
Who do we have up first? Caller, you are live on the air. Kristen from Tennessee.
Good morning.
What's on your mind?
Hey, so about the whole suing schools, I think that's obviously a bad idea. And I'm from Tennessee, and like our legislator has been pumping out all these bills that are affecting public schools. And it seems to me that they are just doing everything they can to end public schools. And they've been trying, the GOP's been trying this forever. It's like go to charter schools and in private schools. And it's just awful.
Yeah.
You know?
No, thank you so much for that call. Georgia, that is something I honestly, as a teacher, I taught at a regular public school, and I taught at a couple of charter schools, and you can see the redirection of resources from public schools to charter schools. But a lot of times, some of those charter schools are struggling themselves. While we switch out our callers, I do want to go to the other side of this, Georgia, for 1 second. And there's a couple of tweets that we'll get to after this next caller that really outlines it's more than just critical race theory that they're attacking here, right? They're going for the whole the whole progressive ideology, the idea that anything about the environment, they're going against green, renewable energy education. They're trying to really undercut every bit of progress they can. So we'll get to those tweets in a minute. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Honored to be on the show with you, Ben. My name is Rob, calling from D.C. I'm a child of educators. My parents were teachers, vice principals, and my mother even started early childhood education in Washington, D.C. So I have a strong, interest in education. The concept that they're proposing is nonsensical from the simple standpoint that you have how many parents involved in a school. You're telling me you're going to get hundreds of parents to come to a consensus on a curriculum, and then what are their backgrounds? So, I mean, the concept is nonsensical to even begin with. And again, as a child of educators, it's not even possible. I've seen it. I've been in the classrooms. I know how much teachers invest in just coming up with supplies for kids. So the concept of suing student teachers is ridiculous. But the concept of having parents weigh in on curriculums, you don't write the curriculum, go to a private school that has a curriculum that you love. Leave public schools, have a standard of education, and go with it.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much for your call this morning.
Thank you. Have a great day.
No, he's spot on, Georgia. What do you, it is, even hearing you pose the question, right, made me feel the way the caller just felt.
We all have different opinions. I do think that it's important to say, okay, well, who does this serve? Who are we serving? And to get a poll, especially of our community here. And that's why it's so important to hear from you all of like, what are your thoughts on this? How are you seeing this? What has your experience been? Are there incidences or experiences where something like this might make sense? To me, I don't see it. And Ben, I know your experience doesn't match up with this being something that would be productive. But then how does somebody like DeSantis get into the position that he is in? Is Florida that much different? Is the community he's serving that much different? That they really do feel like this would be beneficial, that this would help advance their students' education? Or is this a matter of legislation that would help uphold white supremacy?
So before we go to the next caller, and I think Ben is coming back in a moment, we can probably go to at least one or two of the tweets on Mississippi just to kind of put that into the conversation, because what they're doing down there is just, is following in pattern.
It is a Twitter thread that we saw last night that I think actually kind of puts a nice pin focus on where we need to drill down from Black Poll. A whole bunch of numbers. You know how these usernames goes. But this is what they said on Twitter. They said in Mississippi, the whitewashing of history is happening in real time. The Mississippi Department of Education is proposing some changes to the social studies curriculum, and it really isn't being talked about enough. I've gone through the proposed changes, and here are some of the highlights. So this is what's happening in the curriculum in Mississippi. In kindergarten, no more defining rights and responsibilities of citizens. Just define what a citizen is. Not that you have rights and the responsibilities, but that you are a citizen of the United States. Instead of recognized ways people celebrate their diverse cultural heritage, the proposal says to identify types of diversity in the classroom. I want to keep going. Just one more, and then we'll take the whatever callers we have left. They said, explain why rules, more added objectives. Explain why rules should be followed. Recognize that leaders and authority figures establish rules to provide order, security, and safety. Explain that money is earned through work. Georgia, it's not just the critical race theory. It's not just the whitewashing of racism and white supremacy and slavery. They're going for the full democratic experiment. They're trying to instill into our kids' minds that fascism and authoritarianism and complete and total totalitarianism and control over your lives is okay. So I think they're starting with critical race theory, but they're going all the way to undermine democracy.
And if it wasn't for corruption, then maybe we would be able to trust that political leaders really do have our best interest at heart. But I mean, when you look at the track record of this country, every time you take back the veil, it seems as though most of our political leaders lack integrity. So how can we blindly trust those who have not been doing what is best for us? Maybe, in public, they put on a good show, but behind closed doors, we continuously see the outcomes that are being produced by their decisions. And when you look at all of the disparities, they're not equitable outcomes. This isn't just by chance. And so I guess that's why, for me, this conversation about DeSantis is important. Who is he serving? Is this really something he's bringing forth because his constituents asked for it? Is this something he's bringing forth because he truly feels like it's going to be what's best for the students in his district? Or is this something that he's doing simply to uphold white supremacy?
The last caller for this morning will be Roller Dragon.
How are you, man? What's on your mind?
I am literally amazed at the tweets that you just uncovered right there, because it solidified something in my head that really I didn't expect them to act on so quickly. The Republican Party and the right and the fascistic evangelical party have realized something. They can't change adults. They have to start young. They are taking it from base principles and trying to build this society from the ground up. This has got to be stopped. I don't know how. Absolutely. I don't know what devices we can use or what type of legislation we can pass. Obviously, we've seen that legislation does absolutely jack all for what we needed to do. We need something concrete that's going to stop this, because when you start playing with the truth of history, you end up in places like we are now.
Yeah.
And right now, we are in a very dangerous spot. Think about this. And I hate making these comparisons every time I freaking call. When you look at Germany and what Hitler did with the youth of that country, and from then up to completely bamboozle an entire population about a false religion, a false background, and a false backstory, and how successful he was at doing it, to the point where they invaded the rest of the world. That's what these totalitarians want. They want that power. Don't know why.
Roller Dragon, thank you so much for that call. Georgia, that part that he just, thanks so much, man. That part that you just said, that he just said about building something on a false religion, false backstory. That's the thing. History is backstory, Georgia, and they are trying to change the backstory so that there'll be a brand new generation of people who are brought up on the lies of their false backstory, of the false history, and they are trained and groomed to be good little citizens in their totalitarian society. That's what they want. Georgia, it's in your hands.
And even that by itself, it feels, although, when you think about the saying, history repeats itself. Mm-hmm. I mean, they already tried to do this. When I took American history in high school, there was a very, very short section on slavery, and the information that the public schools did share with us about slavery was grossly inaccurate. I mean, they tried to teach us that slaves typically were not beaten because they were considered assets. They were considered pieces of property.
That's right.
And so
if you wouldn't want to damage your property was the argument.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I remember I was a straight A student. I graduated top 20% of my class. But one day when I did get in trouble, it was the day that came up in American history. And I was outraged and ended up walking out class and almost got kicked out of AP English because I wasn't having it. It was a lie, And so the reality of it is, if you look at who created that textbook, who authored that textbook, who is trying to put forth this narrative. It was a white man in that instance. And so there's been reports of similar curriculum being taught across the country. So it's not necessarily a new idea to try and erase history. But what I do think, Ben, is that generation who was taught that watered down version of slavery, right? We're grown now and they see it didn't work.
That's right.
And so now they have to do a more effective job. They have to wash it again, because they didn't wash it enough. They, I guess, maybe decided, let's keep a little, let's try to give them just, a small, but now it feels like they're trying to remove everything that would give any historical context about what happened to Black people in this country. And if you ask me, because if there's any evidence that Black people in this country deserve reparations, well, then eventually somebody has to pay that bill. Eventually. Or at least we have a case that we can keep making for that. But if they erase the evidence, if they erase the history, how do your children's children advocate for reparations?
That's right.
How do they advocate for it?
That's the entire plan right there, Georgia, is to they're willing to wait. I'll put it like this. If we look and see how methodical and how patient they were executing their 50-year plan to undo Roe versus Wade, right? They took 50 years to be in the position that they're in now to strike at the core of Roe versus Wade. What's another 50 years to strike at the entire concept of democracy and freedom in the first place, right? I believe that's what they're trying to cut to. And they know they could bigot their way right into fascism.
The federal trial for 3 other officers charged in the murder of George Floyd is starting to take place. Preparations began yesterday. There was a pre-trial hearing, which I had the opportunity to witness. In fact, about a dozen journalists were allowed into the jury assembly room of the federal court in Minnesota, where we are able to watch a live feed of the federal trial. What we learned is in this case, it will not be live streamed. The only visual documentation that's going to be captured in the federal trial will be from a sketch artist. So no photos, no video. However, they are allowing us to watch the proceedings from a room nearby. Now, Ben, what I took note of yesterday, because of COVID, this judge is asking that 18 jurors are selected. Among those 18 jurors, 6 will be alternates. So I know there was a big gasp in the room of journalists, when he threw that number out. There were like 18 jurors for what? But he's concerned that by having so many people in a room together, the jurors, the witnesses, the attorneys, that the chances will be higher for someone to get COVID. And if there's an outbreak in the courtroom, then that means they would all have to, pack it up and go home and start at a later date. So he's hoping that by increasing the amount of alternates, that in case someone does get sick, they won't end up in a mistrial, but we'll see how that goes. In fact, you just saw Thomas Lane and his attorney, Earl Gray, on the screen. When I was walking in, going through security, they were right behind me. It was a little eerie, I will say. I've seen Earl Gray in court before when I covered the Potter trial, but it was my first time seeing Lane and King, and Tao had already walked into the courtroom. So, it will be interesting. Chauvin was found guilty. We know that on all charges, but will the jury look at these 3 other defendants and hold them to the same level of responsibility? Could they have intervened? Was it their responsibility to do so?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Georgia, good morning. And the first thing is that last thing that you just pointed out, right? What responsibility will the state placed at the feet of the accomplices, or at least those people who were there present with the charge of protecting and serving the community, not murder. And the real question is whether or not they're going to treat these officers the same way they would treat regular citizens. Any regular citizen who is nearby participating in a drive, if they're even so much as in the getaway car for not driving it, if you're somewhere near a murder, there are so many American citizens who are sitting in jail right now for felony murder when they didn't pull the trigger, when they didn't stab the person, when they didn't actually commit the act. And so the question is will these police officers be held to the same standard that the average citizen is held to when it comes to something like felony murder or whatever the charges are in this specific case?
Yeah, well, in the federal case, they are charging these officers with violating George Floyd's civil rights. And the attorneys for the federal government pointed out that they had offered plea deals and that none of these defendants were interested. And so, you know, it will be interesting to see how a jury of their peers or our peers determine their guilt or lack thereof. And then after this trial wraps up, after the federal trial wraps up for these three officers, which, by the way, Chauvin may be a witness because he's already he's already pleaded in this case. He may be a witness, and he may have in his plea deal offered to get a, either lesser sentence or better treatment while he's in jail, and in order for him to testify against these three officers. But before moving on to the state trial, which I was just getting ready to mention, I do want to add that this federal judge, one thing that I thought was very noble of him is that he took note of the 9-year-old witness, Judea, who I interviewed after she testified in Chauvin's trial, that she will be exempt from testifying. And I think that that's honorable considering her age and how traumatic the incident was to live through, and then to have to relive through in a state trial, and then to have to do it again in a federal trial, and then potentially again in the next state trial is a very lot to endure for a 9-year-old. And so in the pretrial hearing yesterday, the judge did say she will be exempt from testifying. And I really applauded him for that, because I don't think she should have to go through that again. But we did learn yesterday, after the federal trial wrapped up, that the state trial for the other three officers, just to clarify here, there's federal charges and then there's the state charges. So the federal trial starts January 20th for the other three officers. The state trial will start in March, and that one will be live streamed. There was an issue released yesterday by Judge Cahill, who has agreed to allow the state trial to be live streamed in March.
And with the, I still wonder, Georgia, with this process, truly, I feel like the odds are better for us to continue to get justice on the federal level. I don't want to be wrong in that feeling, and we'll have to see how it plays out. I am curious as to the charges, the second-degree murder charges. Like, I really do want to see the culpability that is extended to the quote unquote bystanders, because as you said at the beginning, when it comes to the actual life and the life that was taken from George Floyd, these people, these three other officers, had the opportunity to intervene to protect his life, and they did not. So there's a lot that's coming down the pipeline. And I agree with you on that the young girl not having to testify, because this one murder, this murder has shattered and fractured so many lives for the foreseeable future. And they're not even past even the first step, which is trying to get justice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and when you think about the fact that Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck, we originally thought it was 8 minutes and 26 seconds based on the video that was captured by Darnella Frazier. But what we learned after reviewing body camera footage in the state trial against Chauvin was that, in fact, he had his knee on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. And so you mean to tell me for nearly 10 minutes, as a peace officer, you don't have any inkling to say, let's stop? or you're hearing all of the civilians asking you to please get off of his neck, to please stop. You had I believe she was either a paramedic or someone who worked for the fire department who knew first aid, who was offering to help before the paramedics got there, and they declined. And so the question here is, if you are on duty with another officer who's using excessive force, when is it your responsibility as a professional to intervene and say that's enough? Right. I think that this trial is going to be significant and set a precedent for policing. And it should on a federal level. This is a federal case. So if they are found guilty, it should set a precedent for other police departments in this country to say, we're not going to tolerate not only one officer using excessive force, but 3 other officers standing by and watching and not doing anything about it.
That's right. And that's so critical. Like if at this juncture, if these officers are able to get away with this, which I don't believe that they're going to get away with this, right? I think this is one of those cases that should be clear, but we still live in the United States of America. So as with everyone else, all of us are holding our breath. But at the end of the day, if we can get on the record that these police officers had a responsibility, which should be obvious. This is the sad part, Georgia. It should be obvious just simply by the fact that we pay police officers that we should not be paying people to kill us, that we should not be paying people to sit around and watch as another officer kills us. And yet there are people in this system, not just police officers, there's people on the other side of the argument, the political argument, who suggest that you and I and people like us who see this absurdity, that we're out of pocket, that we're in the wrong. And I'm hoping that this case on the federal level will resolve that as well as on the state level, because I think they need some real accountability here.
Well, and, the big argument from the defense, specifically for the officers who are rookies, is going to be that they were rookies. They didn't know that this was their first time in an intense encounter like this. We saw similar narratives being presented during the Potter trial for the officer who was being trained in by Potter at that time, that, he's a rookie cop. In that case, that cop actually transferred from a different department. So we learned, in fact, even though it was his first day on that job, it definitely wasn't his first day in the business. And so in this case, I do anticipate that is going to be the defense. But it's going to be challenging, Ben. I know that we live in a very visual society. And so to offer reports every day about what's happening in court without any photos or video, I know it's going to be hard to help people follow along. But I'm committed to going to the courthouse every day, plugging in however I can and taking notes and sharing that with individuals, because I think it's going to be very important, not only for people to see the outcome in this federal case, but to see how we get to that conclusion. So the jury selection begins on January 20th. I believe there's one more pretrial hearing between then, and I will continue following the developments in this federal case.
Thank you so much, Georgia. It's we need people there to bear witness, is one of the things I heard Cliff Albright from Black Voters Matter say when, as it pertains to the Ahmaud Arbery trial. They were there. And actually, I was able to be there for one of the days. We were there to bear witness in the process of achieving justice. Because truth is if we don't have bodies in these rooms as these decisions are being made, we should have no expectation of actual justice. Coming up next, we have, like it or not, DJ Exclusive is in the house. Rebecca Zor is coming in, and we're going to be joined by Public Defender Olay Olurin from New York City. We're going to be talking about Rikers and the school to prison pipeline. That's all coming up next on the Benjamin Dixon Morning Show.
voice. Y'all know the sound. Good morning, everybody. It's your boy, man, River Williams, DJ. Good morning. Good morning, y'all.
I'm not sure I understand it, but everything seems brighter now than before. I don't know why I feel this way, but every time I hear your name, all my worries disappear, yeah. It's all because of you. I feel the way I do. You make my dreams come true, yeah. It's all because of you, because of you. And I don't fall in love so easily, 'cause I don't wear my heart up on my sleeve.
Everybody, here I am, here I go. I missed y'all too. Good morning.
Feel the same, but every time I hear your name,
make sure y'all stay tuned.
my worries disappear. It's all because
shout out to everybody in that chat rooms wherever you are streaming from this morning.
I feel the way I do. You make my dreams come true.
Good morning, Mama and Daddy. I see y'all in the chat room this morning. Good morning, y'all. Shout out to George and Floyd.
Because of you.
Esther Rocha, good morning. Courtney, good morning to you. Juanita and a heart. Blue bird on my shoulder. Alicia. Promises manifest the same, right? Mark S, what's going on, brother? Laura Estrada, good morning. KT Shock, good morning. Laura Estrada. Adrian, good morning. Whitney Woods, Amber Layla, good morning to you. Six Dragon Daddy, what's going on, brother? Big City Socialist, Cypress. Brother Tiger, what's going on? Iris, good morning. Kareem. Roller Dragon, thank you for calling in this morning. Good morning to you. Lunch break, good morning. Miss Nuru, good morning to you. That's right, Olay is coming up next, so make sure y'all stay tuned, man. Y'all don't want to miss this. Joey, good morning to you. Shout out brother Chuck Diesel, man. Ryan, good morning to you as well.
I could really use a change of scenery.
Infinite content, what's going on with the morning?
Smoking all the greenery.
Daniel Perez, good morning. And Angela Newman, what's going on, Angela?
I'm still fly, I know.
Al Boogle. What's up, Al?
I'm still fly, let's go.
Bruce Kamen, good morning. Iris Jones, Demon Yamamama, Stu the Dragon, good morning.
Supposed to make the man, but that poison's gonna chew you from the inside.
Party lady, good morning to you.
Right now, say it with your chest now, say it with your chest now. I'm free.
Iris Jones, you got this, sister. Iris Jones, you got this.
And now, it's my time to run it out.
Brother Bryce, what's going on? Angela Newman, I heart you too.
I'm free. Can't nobody take me here and now. It's my time to run it out. It's my time. It's my time. It's my time to run it out. It's your time. It's your time. Oh. Cheers to all the haters, 'cause you proved to me that rising to the top was my destiny. And you can see whatever from behind me, but I'm still
shout out brother Latif in the building. Good morning, brother.
I'm still
shout out Benjamin Dixon. We had that man phone buzzing and going the hell off while he's trying to talk on the show. I thought man, we still know you big head ass. Good morning, brother B.
Supposed to make the man, but that poison's gonna kill you.
Benny Epson, good morning to you.
From the inside out, it's time to say it with your chest now. Say it with your chest now. I'm young, I'm free. Can't nobody take me here.
And a heart. Good morning, Ella.
It's my time to run
morning, Tyler.
It's my time to
Levi, good morning.
It's your time. Oh. If you're on the bus, say yeah. Yeah. If you're on the train, say yeah. Yeah. If you got a
What's going on, old hippie?
Yeah. Everybody's going somewhere. Yeah. Young or old, I really don't care. Yeah. Life has never really been fair.
Brother Bryce, we praying for you, bro. We got you, man. Brother Bryce, y'all.
I'm young, I'm free. Can't nobody take me here and now. It's my time to run it out. It's my time to ride it. I'm young, I'm free. Can't nobody take me here and now. It's my time to run it out.
Don't FedEx them. I'll never get it.
It's my time to ride it out.
Miss Newell, good morning to you.
It's your time. Oh.
Rasheed Knowles, good morning.
Tell him I need my money right now. Probably the juice they stole out my crown. Sorry to tell you, I know my value. I'm gonna recoup it. But don't waste my energy, my energy. I don't got much, don't be wasting all my energy. Keep it tight, don't let nobody get close to me. My heart is right, don't question my integrity. No, I thought we would be just fine, and I thought your heart was like mine. But let me find out, you've been going around throwing shots, running plots. Come on, man, tryna block my blessings, but no need for comparisons. What's from me won't be from me. Yeah, I'ma go through just to grow.
You want the song or you want another song?
What you been saying about me?
Jeremy Dwayne, you want the song or you want another song?
Tell them I need my money right now. Probably the juice they stole out my crown. Sorry to tell you, I know my value. I'm gonna recoup it. Don't waste my loyalty. I let you in back then because I couldn't see. But now it's clear you ain't ever been true to me. My intuition ain't never lied, I had to leave. Handle your business, do what you think you need to do to get your revenge. But you won't break.
Hey, Dwayne, why are you working at that? I got a question for you. What happens when you eat aluminum foil?
But no need for comparisons. What's from
you? Sheet metal.
Yeah, I'ma go through just to grow through. But baby, what you want me for? I make what you've been saying about me true. Tell them I need my money.
Oh, now I can't wait.
Probably the juice they stole out my crown.
Okay. Y'all know what time it is. Let me go ahead and play this song because now I'm ready to see what Rebecca got on. Because they's going crazy in the background, y'all. I don't know what Rebecca got on. Now I got to wait and see. Elizabeth Lungs, good morning. Shelby Hall, Industrial Arts, what's going on? Good morning. Q, you might want to turn on the show for this one. We about to see what Rebecca got on. She over here doing the damn thing. We about to see. Y'all know what time it is, man. It's time.
Y'all know what time it is. Good morning.
For the sleeves.
Get your coffee, your tea, your drink, whatever it is you need. It's time for my government show. 9 a.m. to 10:30, yeah. Like it or not, is on your channel.
Good morning, brother.
Politics and culture is we change game like we're supposed to, yeah. Interviews and all the news, we get to choose what gets the views. Like it or not, with Queen Azul, it's starting now, so stick around.
Like it or not, it's going down. Like it or not, y'all stick around. It's coming through.
Looking like one of the doo-wop sisters.
You know she got
good story for you. Oh, Benjamin, that's my dog. This is his show. He's a politics bro.
Yes. Somebody brought this to my attention, and I said I was going to do it. I was going to juxtapose this song, but it sounds like Aaliyah one in a million. And I'm like, damn, it sure do.
Y'all know who I am. Is a one. I stay dropping them jams. Like it or not.
Hollywood, good morning.
It's going down.
So I did write a jam.
Like it or not. Y'all stick around. Oh, like it or not. It's starting now. Like it or not. Oh, go down.
Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, people. Girl, you got money.
Good morning.
Bitch,
That's
for
right.
the
You see
awards. She got money.
Good morning.
Sorry, I just got a notification that my credit score went up 10 points.
My bad. Sorry, I had to take everybody else off the screen so that we could see Rebecca in all her glory.
True. Right. Yeah, Rebecca.
Come on, Fur.
Rebecca
You need to
Azor.
stand up and walk. Rebecca, get up and walk. Rebecca, get up and walk.
Y'all don't want me to get up and walk. Give them looks.
Rebecca, yes, get up and walk.
She about to do it, though. She about to do it. You better strike, girl.
Frederick, give me my coffee, Frederick. Look like a rich white woman.
Listen.
Okay. All right. Let's skip the formalities. Welcome to Like It or Not. Free to tell the truth. Rebecca
And
Azor
not
just
care
won.
who doesn't like it. Hey, Olay.
I was going to cut you off to let everybody know that and then obviously we have our sister Olay Olurin on the show on the screen. Olay, thank you so much for joining us. I do want to get to some serious stuff about Rikers and all the important stuff that we talk about, but our sis came on the show with a whole fur because she won last night. Rebecca, give me the title of the award that you won, and congratulations, sister. Give it in the chat room. Put some claps up, some lions up.
Wait a minute.
Sister
Wait a
Rebecca
minute.
Azor. Uh-oh. I just realized what was coming.
It was so delayed, but it was necessary. But I just want to thank
the Academy.
I just want to thank you guys for making me the Digital Haitian Creative Podcast of the Year award winner for 2021 for Haitians Who Blog. So it's great to represent my community. Honestly, been doing this for God knows how many years. Got some awards, but this one means a lot to me because I really, 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 really love that I can represent my Haitians in politics, right? And having a conversation and being real as hell, just being around a lot of people who are real as hell, but be able to tell the stories and for them to understand it, not only right here in the U.S., you guys, but in Port-au-Prince and Jérémy and Gonaïve and Okap and Haiti. And those people will contact me all the time, sending me voice notes on the Facebook, okay? I don't understand, you know what I'm saying? But they'll contact me all the time and tell me how much I'm a voice for them. They'll contact me on Instagram and they'll send me DMs and let me know. And for me to be a part of that and for me to be able to shine a light on them and us, that is amazing to me. So I'm happy. I'm blessed. I'm happy. I'm thankful. And I just want to thank you guys, the supporters, because if it wasn't for you out there really voting for me, I really love you guys.
So Olay, there's a whole lot that is happening, and I don't want to necessarily direct the conversation completely. I want you guys to be free and
I'll tell y'all how I got here, and then that's how we started.
that I messaged Ben?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it was. Go ahead.
I spend my every day being an outraged, educated Black person, right? Just every day trying to learn more and being more upset. So over the holidays, I didn't even go home. So I'm reading them, reviewing discovery on my cases. So I get this case I'm reviewing. It's like a teenage kid accused of having a fight at school, like a school fight. I'm like, why is this in front of me? Why is this in criminal court? I look at it, I'm like, this is just a regular children having a fight. So then from there, doing my research, I review the high school. I look up the high school, and it's like a high school now highly populated by Black and people of color, right? Like Black and Latino people present day. But when I go in the archives and I start looking at the articles and everything that's pinned to the Wikipedia page about it, I'm finding that this is a school that's an all-white school in like 1915, right? This is a very, very white school. And by like the 1960s, they start introducing Black people in the school, and all hell breaks loose, right? All the articles in the New York Times are white students getting guns, confronting them, fighting them, scaring them off, doing things like this for tens and tens of years, right? This goes on for a while. And, every New York Times article at one point in time, a Black kid is even shot at the school by these white students, right? Literally shoot him. And, and the articles in the New York Times are like, oh, Negroes upset or Negroes confronted. You know what I mean? The articles are all framed around the response to the Black students being upset. And I start looking, right? And I'm like, so for tens and tens of years, this is an extremely white school. And once Black students are introduced even into the school, into the neighborhood, they're forced to deal with all kind of violence at the school. The school's been like this. This is what they're dealing with. And then by the time the school is highly Black, or highly people of color, because, white flight, now all of a sudden you insert police into the schools, you insert all these devices. And now present day, here I am representing teenage children accused of crime at this school. But that wasn't even the characterization. You weren't criminalizing these students when it was white kids literally shooting Black students at this school. But now in 2021, I'm supposed to have to defend a teenager. And then that just brought me down the school to prison pipeline rabbit hole, right? There are tens and tens and tens of thousands of children arrested and incarcerated in America. As young as 6 years old, under 10 years old.
No, wait. You can't breathe. Ooh. In 6-year-olds incarcerated? Incarcerated. Arresting children for school fights. And we need to understand is these things are intentional. All of this is set up very, very deliberately. It's our schools. That's where they put it. No one else has heard of a scenario. How many white movies do you watch? Teenage shows, all kinds of shows, movies where children are running amok, right? They're running amok. They're doing foolishness. They're throwing underage parties. They're getting into fights. And it's cute, quirky, young material as you're watching it. But why is it that the police have to be involved? Why are our kids getting arrested for things that would be detention, for disciplinary things, for regular interactions? Why are they arrested? Why can't you punish a child? I went to school, all right? And I have gone in the face of more than a few children in my day. I have wanted to fight people. No one has ever decided, hey, this person needs the police. You know what I mean? This person needs the juvenile center. Because what happens is, if you're arresting children, if you are arresting children, please think about this. The other day I tweeted that the school to prison pipeline is a real thing, that over 30,000 children were arrested or incarcerated between around 2018. And people started responding with their stories. They started talking about the children in their lives that have been arrested, the little boys they know, or when that's happened to them. That's insane, right? That's insane that's even a narrative, that's even experienced. Because what happens, right? Grown adults go with the psychological fallout of being criminalized, right? People are arrested. I can't tell you how many times I've been talking to somebody that's been arrested, and I have to explain to them, you're not a criminal. You don't have to feel differently about yourself. This hasn't changed who you are. This doesn't have to be this kind of impediment to your life. That's hard to psychologically reconcile as an adult who's lived an entire life where they weren't a criminal or they weren't criminalized, right? Imagine you're a child. Imagine you're a kid, and from the minute you're 6, you're 10, people are telling you, you need to go to jail, you're bad, there's no other way to deal with you. What happens then? What path does it determine? It's no coincidence that we have our children and our students being subjected to this. They are subjected to the police in schools. They're subjected to police brutality on the streets. And then we wonder why, the average Black man between 18 to 29 years old is arrested or incarcerated at some point. Why? They're being set up for this. They're being set up for failure. And it's very clear. And I just felt like, you know what, I have to start talking about these things, because a lot of the things I think happen in the American system that continue to go is because they do a deliberate disservice to everybody by not telling them.
That's why we don't see it in the schools. That's why it's not in the books. That's why they keep trying to ban all of the books. They try to ban all of the speakers because they don't want people to know. Because if people know, people will want to put a stop to it. People will be outraged, but they don't know. People do not realize, hey, these schools are filled with the police. And it's also no coincidence that the New York City itself has the most segregated schools in the country. We have the most segregated schools in the country, and then all the Black schools, the schools where Black students and people of color, they have police in the schools. Why is that?
So, that's on purpose.
That was how I messaged Ben.
Girl, she just look that she just so that's how you message Ben. Look, because I was like, girl, because she got the thing is, Olay is like me. When we're very passionate about the topic, we're gonna be here for 5 hours. If you don't stop us, we're gonna try to stop ourselves. But we really ain't gonna finish the story because we got so much more left to go. So,
yes.
but that's how she met Ben. But it's you said something, Ben, and that alerted you as well. You've been on our show and you talked so much about teenagers who've been handcuffed and or in jail, or you talked about how Riker's situation is with just all different kinds of people in the worst conditions. We're talking about how policing in schools, like this is your focus, and I love that. But it's interesting enough when you talk about kids, like just kids as young as 5. I remember reading in the New York Times about a little girl, and I remember we covered it on here. This is vintage stories, but we covered it on here long ago. And there was like a 6-year-old girl. We were talking about policing and how policing is trash, and how 13 because. But we talked about how that 6-year-old was in the middle of a courtroom, swinging her little legs and being asked, do you know what you did? And her being so shy and playing with her fingers and just kind of looking down. I think what she did was throw rocks or something and hit a car, some white. And, they literally took this to jail, a baby. To jail. And I thought that is ridiculous to me. I read that story over and over, and I said, how is this not something that is on mainstream media, us being outraged at a 6-year-old or a 5 or a 6-year-old,
Because they don't let our kids be kids. Because our kids aren't kids to them. Our kids are not kids to them. And, whenever we have children, whenever something happens to our children, all of a sudden white America acts that they have a different lens that they look through things with. Like all of a sudden their eyes work differently, cameras work differently. Somehow they cannot see our children as children. Tamir Rice wasn't a child to them, right? Stanley Brown Jr. just the other day was not a child to them. Our children in court, Phantom Billy, who was killed the other day, was not a child to them. They don't see our children as children. For whatever reason, somehow our children transform to big, grown, scary adults because they never allow us to be kids, because they don't allow us to be human.
Wow.
They dehumanize us from the very jump. We're never individuals. And that's why it all becomes a story of how they were afraid, they were this. Why can't you see as a child? How come, let me ask you this, how come when they know it's a 17-year-old, right? And I'm not going to talk about him, but how come Rittenhouse is a kid? You're so sympathetic to him because he's a kid. Regardless, we're not going to talk right or wrong. They were able to see him as a child. He is 17. He's a teenager. But when you shoot our 11, 12-year-olds holding toy guns, when our children can't even ride a dirt bike down the street without you chasing them to their deaths, how come they're not kids? How come they're not kids? Why is that? Why is there no stage in Black life that comes with humanity? Why is there no point where we're sympathetic? We're not sympathetic when we're children. We're not sympathetic when we're mothers. We're not sympathetic when we're fathers. We're not sympathetic when we're dead. So when is it?
Nothing.
Damn.
So Olay,
right.
So I want to add to that though, for your story, so we can complete it, so they know how you met Ben, because that's not only how you jumped into Ben's DM. Why?
That's how I met Ben. That's how no. That was how I was disturbing Ben over Christmas.
Say it like that, Ben.
I didn't even know Ben originally came. I mean, that's how.
I haven't met Olay either.
Because I'm like, you started the story.
Oh my God.
Okay, when I first met Ben, that's what it was giving.
No. That's when I first decided to harass Ben to the top of the new year.
Okay, there we go.
Listen. We don't need any mix. Listen. I'm too short for her anyway. Let's not have any confusion out here. I jump in her DMs for politics. She jumps into mine for Rikers, and we work. Okay.
There we go. Because I'm like, girl, where did you? Why? How? Who? Because I remember.
Listen, I be upset. I be very, very upset about the reality of what America. I'm telling you, I be upset. People be
at 3 a.m. She's upset.
Well, you and Ben together. You and Ben together.
Yes, I be in court. You and Ben together. People think it's a good day.
Yeah.
And I'm upset. I'm always upset. Because it's just, you know what it is for me? I think I have a problem living in America where, you know, we have, on one hand, we have Black people all over the TV, right? We have Megs, we have Beyonce, we have all these different ways. We have us here talking. So there's so many ways to like look past reality and think, okay, look at Black people. We're doing well. We're in these white spaces. We're doing stuff. Things could be so hunky-dory. Like, you could be watching Insecure and think, yeah, look at Black life.
That's
and then
right.
you watch Boys
That's
and
right.
and also look at Black life. You know what I mean? Also look at Black life. That's a problem for me. The idea that 1 second a Black person could be in the middle of Insecure and the next second they're in Fruitvale Station, that's an issue for me. Because that's the reality of being Black in America. People can transform their narrative.
Okay, wait, Olay, I gotta slow you down. 1 minute you could be in Insecure, and the next minute you could be in what?
Fruitvale Station.
God damn.
And it's true. And it's true. And it's true. How many times you ever been in your car listening to a song you live in? You have the soundtrack of your life movie going, and now all of a sudden the police in your rear view and you're in a different movie. You have different fans. You have different considerations.
Just yesterday.
How many times?
Just yesterday.
Right. How many times you've been texting your Black male friend? He tell you he going somewhere. Now he driving. Now you're like, hey, let me know when you get home safe. Now you're waiting on that text, right? Now you're nervous.
That's right.
Just last night.
And that. Yes, exactly. That part right there is the part I can't live with. It's not okay for me. I'm like, I go to court every day. It's easy to get disconnected from it. But for me, I'm like, you know, when I go to court and I think to myself, like I'm sitting in court and I'm there and I'm the lawyer and in certain ways that I'm not being criminalized, but I'm looking around in the court. I'm looking around on the walk to the court, and every person that looks like me, everybody that's in the same financial lane of life, everybody that I'm familiar with is heading to the court to be prosecuted. That's a problem for me. You know what I mean? The only Black people I see around are either the DA prosecuting people, the police arresting people, or the person in jail. That's not how it should be. And yet it is. And that's a problem for me. And it's just something I can't live with. I cannot live with. It's just not okay. And people turn a blind eye.
Kim Kardashian, we have a clip. They are being sued. Kim Kardashian, who else was it? There's three. There's Paul Pierce, former NBA player.
And Floyd Mayweather Jr.
They are all being sued for fraud, for Bitcoin, for cryptocurrency. Not Bitcoin exactly, but it's cryptocurrency fraud. Let's take a listen to this clip and how these celebrities allegedly got over.
And several celebrities are being sued for allegedly leading investors into a crypto pump and dump scam. The list includes Kim Kardashian, Floyd Mayweather Jr., and Paul Pierce. They're being accused of, quote, making false or misleading claims to investors about Ethereum through social media and other promotional platforms. That's according to a class action complaint filed in the Central District of California. The lawsuit says the celebrities told their millions of followers to buy the cryptocurrency only to sell it once the price was inflated.
Yep. Now, this isn't a statement against all cryptocurrency, but it really is a statement to, like, y'all don't follow these celebrities to your own financial demise. You got to understand by the time a celebrity is promoting something, it's already too late for you to really make some money out of it. You're getting taken to the bank. Go ahead.
So hold on. I mean, I understand. Yeah, what they did. Yeah, that's foul. But that's what goes on with the stock market every single day. Like these white people, I don't know how to put it. That's making all this money off of it. That's how they do it, man. Like, and
go ahead, take your time.
I don't know. What else to say? It's.
I don't disagree with what you did. This is how it's done. This is how it's done.
It's scammy, but when it's
this is why I'm talking to the victims of it versus like what was the story earlier today in today's episode? We were talking about somebody taking an action that's detrimental to their audience and for their own personal financial gain, right? This is the same thing. Jonathan Isaacs, right? We were talking about him being willing to sell his quote unquote story for his own personal gain, to the detriment of the Black community. Same exact thing. They're replicating behaviors that they did learn, right? This is how you come up. You inflate the stock, matter of fact, the system's so good, you don't even have to believe in a stock to make money off of it. You could hedge against it. You could bet against it and make money. All that is true. I think everybody in the audience should know that this is what they're doing with you. When you follow these celebrities, not every single one of them, but man, come on, like, it is increasing their bag to your detriment.
And again, when white people are doing it, they're getting paid. And I believe that.
Hey, Kim Kardashian white?
I'm about to say something. Hold on.
Okay, I'm about to.
I don't think Kim Kardashian is really going to be just as affected as the rest of them. Of course, it's going to make better headlines because it's Kim Kardashian, though. And she's Armenian. If you want to say it's, white, black, whatever, or a little brown, little tan.
White passing. We'll go with that.
Because I used to work for a woman who was from Iran, and she looked like her. But she used to literally say, I'm from the Aryan race of them, because she looked white. But I used to tell her, but don't they call your family members terrorists? I used to have to get her together, put her into, and then she was telling me that she's olive colored. And I'm like, what is that? Now you're reaching, sis. Hey, I know you want to be a person of color, so they're going to reach and find one. And olive was the one that they found. And I said, no, it ain't it. But anywho, we're not, that's far from what we're talking about. But I'm saying, though, I've heard of this crypto scam, and so many people who are white are getting away with it and getting money and cashing out on this. And what's his name is already a billionaire. Right?
Mayweather.
Floyd Mayweather. And Paul Pierce, I don't know what his stances in it.
No, I'm joking.
But this is, and it's pretty, and I love Paul Pierce, by the way, but it's pretty scammy. It's pretty scammy, this whole crypto thing. If you don't know how to do it, if you do know how to do it, I don't know, but it's pretty scammy. And now they have, the new things is crypto, NFTs, it's
NFTs,
all kinds of things that are happening.
If you
found your way, if you found your way in it, God bless you. But if you are, caught up in it and you happen to be, I think, black, it's just you're probably not going to get the same benefits that everybody else is getting from it. Just like we see with weed, right? When they're selling, marijuana, how we see how that's going. I think it's the same thing in this.
It's when a market gets saturated, you get this, right? When crypto, if you got started in Bitcoin at the beginning, you're rich now. You're just stupid if you got properly started. But when a market gets saturated like this is when you get celebrities coming in to push it one step a little further so that they can squeeze out just a little bit more before the bubble bursts. Now, is crypto in general a scam? You're going to have a lot of people on the internet who say yes, a lot of people who say no. I'm not wading into that because I'm picking my fights. I'm not fighting that argument. Yeah. But what I will say is that they are at the stage of maturation in their business model where the scam is the thing. NFTs, if you're just now getting into non-fungible tokens, there's a good chance you're going to be scammed. And I don't mean by fraudsters. I mean, the whole thing is a scam.
How are you NFTing a picture?
It's even worse. It's to the point where now everybody wants to sell NFTs. This is the hustle, y'all. Everybody wants to sell non-fungible tokens. Do you know how much it costs to sell non-fungible tokens on Ethereum now?
It's going to be a bigger level than that. That's just what you're seeing now. But even the environment in Meta, the metaverse, going to literally the entire, any aspect, your desk, your home, anything, your virtual whatever that they're envisioning is all going to be worth money, is all going to be worth crypto. You're going to be able to sell nothing for something.
Now, don't get me wrong. Now, I do want to flip it and say this. Now, the aspect of crypto that I am seriously supportive of, besides the actual underlying blockchain technology, which is actually pretty dope, underneath it is the challenge to the banking system. I am all for sticking it to Chase, to Bank of America, to Wells Fargo. I'm about that life in terms of crypto.
They probably in on it too.
But on this side of it, though, they're trying to get on it. Well, that's why they're fighting it so hard. You have people like Jamie Dimon coming out, CEO of Chase, coming out, speaking out against it. You had, I think Hillary Clinton came out and speaking against it. So to me, that's a signifier to say, okay, there's something there about it that is challenging and is disruptive and is going to mess up some of the way the banking system works today. And everybody who has overdraft fees should say amen. I'm good on that part. But the part that I think people need to be aware of is that if you're on the front end and you're just now getting into it, you better really understand that it is operating like Dwayne said. It's operating exactly like Wall Street at this point. It's no longer a tool of liberation. It's a liberation for people who already got crypto.
Yep.
You try to get into crypto now? Okay.
But that's the system. That's how it works. But you know who's going to get in on it? And while we literally sleeping, they're going to, no. those same corporations that we're talking about. That's why we see them being able to say, hey, we're going to lower our $35 fees and it's going to make it $10 now.
Oh, they're going somewhere else now.
They're finding ways to tap in. They're going to say, you know what, for this particular huge crypto business, crypto brand, we're going to partner with them. Now it's going to come out. Bank of America has now partnered with crypto. It's going to be all of that, because when you got money, you can do things. And somebody was saying, like, rich privilege could be any race. You are right.
Absolutely
rich privilege can be any race, but when it comes to white privilege, there's a difference on that, right? Because you can have money and still be in jail. You can have money and be black, but see,
let me give you this stat. Black people, it is a statistical study showing that black people born into wealthy families are far more likely to end up poor than any other race. So there is a racial component to economics in this country. And if the fact that I even have to say that, considering we used to be chattel slavery.
Period.
MJ Rodriguez, the first trans woman to win a Golden Globe, and she's not white.
This is a clip of her from.
This is B-roll, but we have a clip of her.
Okay, yeah, because I thought you said we have a clip of her speaking. She's speaking about Is this it right here? Well, let's run the clip. Let's hear her thoughts, because she spoke about the historic moment. If we have that clip, let's run it.
Hold on 1 second so I can help Dwayne.
This is for the LGBTQAI, Black, Latina, Asian, the many beautiful colors of the rainbow around the freaking world. This is not just for me. This is for y'all.
That is MJ Rodriguez reacting live on Instagram last night after making history for becoming the first trans woman to ever win a Golden Globe.
There are going to be so many young individuals, young, talented, thriving individuals that are going to be able to trail in and storm in through the door. This is for y'all.
MJ won the award for Best Actress in a Television Series Drama for her role as Blanca on Pose, which ran for 3 seasons. MJ also made history last year when she became the first trans woman to receive an Emmy nomination in a lead acting category. And when we caught up with her, she spoke about the power of her nomination.
It's no longer a space where discrimination because of who we are. That's no longer the case. We're showing up and we're doing the work.
MJ also posted this to her Instagram following her win, saying, "They will see that a young Black Latina girl from Newark, New Jersey, who had a dream to change the minds of others, would with love. Love wins. To my young LGBTQAI babies, we are here. The door is now open. Now reach the stars."
Dope.
Absolutely love this for MJ. And I'll say this, in these moments where the firsts are happening, it's nice to see, still first, right? It's nice to see trans people be able to be acknowledged without, disrespect. Like, somebody
not much disrespect, because they're obviously,
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure there was some, there were people who were talking.
To your point, though.
Yeah, that MJ wasn't deserving, but MJ's an actor. MJ did the work, regardless of being trans or whatever. She's an actor. And I feel like, in these times, in this moment, it's bigger than any of us could fathom, because I think just not too long ago, this would have never been a thing, because she was trans. She would never be considered. But we would know we would see the greatness, we would see the passion, we would see all of that being done. But a low-level person would have probably taken this award just naturally, because that's just how our world was moving. And now we're fighting for trans people. Now we're fighting for, any oppressed person.
That's right.
To be able to be seen in these spaces. And that's what's causing a lot of these people to kind of shift in a way. We have a lot more work to do, but this is something that is groundbreaking, and I hope will continue.
And to what you were saying, as we get ready to go to the after party, patreon.com/like it or not to become a patron. To what you're saying, Rebecca, if you need a scapegoat, if your ideology, if what you believe in needs somebody to be like your scapegoat for you to attack, for you to rally your supporters around, then that your ideology is one of oppression. And like you said, Rebecca, we on the side of liberation of all people. All people. So congratulations to MJ. Let's get all these first. Let's get all the first out of the way in the next few years.
I love you guys so much. Make sure you guys are tuning in tomorrow. Make sure you become a Patreon on patreon.com/like it or not.
You said that.
I love you, mean it.
Love y'all, mean it.
All right, B.
Shout out to B. We will see y'all over there, man. Hey, shout out to everybody that joined us this morning. And if you are not the Patreon yet, you can go to patreon.com/like it or not, or patreon.com/the I have so much trouble saying. Go ahead, become a Patreon. Get the likes up, get the sets up, all that good stuff, and get all this access, man. We love y'all. We mean it. We will see y'all tomorrow. Shout out Marsha Reese in Industrial Arts. What's going on, y'all? And also, your affirmation for today is I can feel my body growing stronger, and I am grateful I never give up. I can feel my body growing stronger, and I am grateful I never give up. All right, y'all. Y'all be great. We're going to take y'all out. Come to mama.
Just come to mama. She'll take care of all of your drama. Baby boy, just come to mama. She's gonna make it alright. She doesn't always feel like she's a